Good morning everyone, another foundering car. You're here now under the carport, therefore with the windows open. Some gasoline smell in the car, so that will give it a little bit more fresh air. Funny thing is, once it gets rolling, it becomes really quiet, even the HKS exhaust does. Just giving you a little bit of a taste without the windows closed.
Sla daar naar rechts. Sla na 50 meter af naar links. Sla daarna direct af naar rechts. Sla hier af naar links. Sla daarna direct af naar rechts.
Really giving you a little bit of a taste. Hope this small video is interesting to you. I will close the windows now because we're picking up some speed. Also the back windows in the back.
Sla hier af naar rechts.
The funny thing is,
daarna de rotonde bij de eerste afrit.
when you close it, it gets a little bit more of a hum sound.
Sla naar 150
But probably
meter af naar rechts.
also
De
because
Volksstraat Grauseweg.
probably also because it is
Sla hier af naar rechts.
it's more on the gas now. Have a great day. Bye bye. Foundering car out. So another foundering car. Today we will discuss the warrior spirit, both in normal life, but also in the business life. So as you might have noticed, this channel is named by Spartan Law, and by Spartan Law is, if you've seen the movie or you read the books or the historical accounts, by Spartan Law was no retreat, no surrender. That is by Spartan Law. And that's a mindset that you see in warriors over time. Spartans were elite warriors, of course, but also if you look at the commandos, Green Beret, SEAL, SAS, and all other special units, let alone normal warriors, very often have a specific ethic, and that goes along those lines, that you will focus on the task ahead and will try to accomplish it no matter what. This is both beneficial, because you will get to the goal or try dying. As 50 Cent said, get rich or try dying. That's a little bit about the mentality, but in this case it's often a greater good, sometimes for countries or sometimes for something else that they want to approach this at. But it can also be a drawback, because your focus is so much on that target and that goal that you want to achieve, that there are beautiful things or not so beautiful things around you that you are missing. So either you're missing them or you're not giving them the attention that they might need. So for example, if there are problems in the family, one of your family member, one of your children has troubles at school or something else, going through puberty or what have you, this could be going outside the vision that you have, focused on the goal. So that's a drawback. But putting those things aside, because I really think family and other things might be a lot more important than other things like goals or business, of course. On the other hand, you need the job oftentimes to sustain your family, so there is some interaction. But if you had to choose one over the other, of course, a job can be replaced and a family or a child, for example, cannot. So you should always prioritize that. Done? Yes. So now on to the topic, the beneficial side of getting things done and getting them accomplished. If you see and you talk to real warriors, for example Marines or elite soldiers, they will tell you that some things that everyone has, and also they had, perhaps even still have, and want to cope and mitigate that, is that there are some things in your life or your personality or normal humanity that will hamper you, because there are doubts, there are things that people want comfort, and you should, on the other hand, to accomplish things, you should get into a different setting, that you're doing this even though it is hard, and hardships, they build character normally, and character is what is needed to carry you through the hard times, and hard times will arise also in your life, and you have to deal with it. You can't sit in the corner and stop whining, but what will that get you? Nothing, of course. But the flexibility, you cannot control what happens around you, or just a limited amount, but you can control how you react to that. And that's something that you can train yourself to do better, but also, of course, the experience that you already tackled hardships in the past can help a tremendous amount, of course. And what they do is they amplify the things that help you attain the goal, and they decrease, limit, or otherwise diminish the effects that don't help. And that's a good thing to keep in mind, because of course they do it from a warrior perspective, and there might be professional warriors, but you can also learn a lot about those things in general life. If you, for example, you're losing your loved ones. I lost my mother last year, and 4 years before that, so now 5 years, I lost my father. And you have to keep going on. Of course you are mourning, of course you are hurt, of course you miss them. Sure, you're human, and that's a good thing. But the other thing is, they would want you to continue to move on and not destroy everything because you just stop living. You cannot stop living. That luxury is not there. And also, is it really a luxury? Because what is life when you stop living it? So also, for example, I'm now driving towards my work, seeing the sun. There can be small things that, even though perhaps you're sad or you're hurt, you can also draw power from those smaller things. And those smaller things can help you. Can help you become good. How do I say this? In a good state, that you feel happy, or as happy as you can be, and you draw in all that positivity. What will negativity bring? It will bring you nothing. Of course, there are things that are negative in life, but your attitude to cope with it can be very positive. So you look into solutions, you look into answers instead of just adding questions and hardship. Just soaking in that will not help you. It will not. If you look at the warriors and they have their training, sometimes they're deprived from sleep for 48 hours, they have to do a lot of physical exercise, which is very hard. And perhaps you think, I love physical exercise, but we also love it without sleep. We also love it when your shoulders are completely raw because we're lifting logs on your shoulders all day long. We also love it when you're cold, wet, and hurt. So that's a mindset, and of course all those things, you're human. Your body gives you a trigger that this is damaging, and that is true. It is damaging. It will hurt. It will hurt a lot. It will also hurt the next day and the day after. But you get things done. It needs to be done, and you do it. And that's a very good attitude, because also your family, your friends, they will rely on you, which is very good for them. It might be parasitic to yourself, because you exchange some of your life energy, your reserves, to help them. It might not be that they do the same thing for you, but you do it regardless because they are your friends and or your family, or you're just a good person, you want to help out others, and that's a good thing. The energy comes from within, and if you do the good things, the chances are that they are returned to you are of course higher, but you don't do the things because you want it in return. You do the things because that drives you. That's a very good place to come from. It's not a place from fear, it's not a place from suffering, it's a place from strength. And sometimes you have to suffer to display the strength. That's another thing. It's another thing altogether. But also in business, if things get hard and you will still do them. They have a saying, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And that's the thing. In business, it will not be a smooth ride. No, it will not. People think, okay, I will do this, and then it will all be rose petals and moonshine and other beautiful things. Of course, there will be some beautiful moments, but there will also be a lot of hard moments. And by going through those hard moments, you will have a bigger chance to revisit and experience more good moments, of course. If you had some good moments and then you saw hard moments and you just phase out, you say, okay, this is not for me, done with it. Of course, the hard moments might stop. They might also not stop because now you don't have a job anymore, and now you have to figure out a new source of income. So you have to start all over again. And by starting all over, in general, you need more hard moments to get to the nice ones again. Okay, but let's put that aside. But you will also know that by stopping, you will block the path to more good moments in that direction. Of course, you can go another direction and find good moments again. And sometimes you have to be fair to yourself and say, okay, I can do this, but I think there's a better way, a better path. There's nothing against that. That's a good thing. People are not stupid. If there is a better path, walk the better path, but not forsake your path just because it becomes hard. I'm not for that. And even if you put in all the hard work and your business idea or your company or whatever, it fails. It can be, but even if it will do, you still have experience and learned a lot from the entire adventure. And the lesson that you learned from that earlier hardship that you manage as good as possible can be projected upon new hardships. You already know, okay, this will be hard, but there will be an end to this. And that end gives you hope. And hope will allow you to go through suffering a lot better. A lot better. And if you're a believer, or if you're a Christian, or that you know that even if real hardship suffers you, it will hurt you really bad. You might be tortured, or you might be killed. Extreme scale, full on. You can still cherish that hope that if you was a good person, your God can resurrect you, and He's wanting to do that. If you are suffering, He also is suffering. So there are so many levels that you can draw energy from, hope from, and those should be cherished. There's not a thing that can divide you or separate you from the love that your God is wanting to give you. As long as you try to keep on holding its hand. But that's just a sidestep by giving you some additional information in a broader, more spiritual way is important, because also, even if you're not a believer, but if you're spiritually involved, it could be something else that is driving you. You, for example, have a goal, you want to make the world better, or you want to do this for your family or your children or whatever. A higher purpose will help you get through the suffering and the hardships. And the thing is, nowadays a lot of persons, they feel I'm here, so I should receive all those gifts. I'm entitled to get all those good things in my life. And I don't want and don't need all the bad hardships. And that's a little bit of an attitude that is now arising across the newer generations. I think the generations that are now developing through this crisis of COVID and also now this conflict will become again harder persons. Because there is also a saying, hard times will produce hard men. Hard men will produce better times. And then better times will become good times. Good times will produce softer men. Softer men will produce hard times. So it's a cycle, It's a cycle. So some generations are hard and they worked hard and they produce better times. And that is to the benefit of the next generations, which will produce then softer men, because it is no longer needed to be that hard and hard working and have that good ethics, working ethics. And then you have a downfall again into harder times, which will dictate a harder type of person again, because otherwise you will get stuck in that spiraling downwards and downwards and downwards. And that's the same, So if you have all that good work ethics, you will have the biggest chance to produce something better for the next generation, for example your children. But by doing so, you will normally, if you do not walk them through the process and also teach them also the benefit of this mindset and hard work, you will produce, or help produce, softer persons with lesser work ethics, which are just reluctant of any suffering. They just want comfort. And that's what good times give. They give comfort, and hard times give discomfort. So, and there is a drive to get out of that. A short example: if there's, you can imagine, there's a bathtub filled with nice water, and you can just sit in there and enjoy and lavish and relax. You will probably take quite your time to do your things. If the same bed was filled with water with ice over it, icy water, low as possible but still being fluid, and you were pressed into that, your body reaction would normally be to get out of it as soon as possible. You will normally not take your time. And there's the Iceman who relinquish in that hard time had the feeling of ice and cold and what it does to the body and mind over matter, etc. It's a different aspect, of course, but there's a mindset to that. An Iceman is a hard man. You can say whatever you want, but he's a hard man. That's a little bit how good times can be compared to the warm bed, and the hard times can be compared to the ice bed. And that's ice bed triggers an action, whereas that warm bed triggers a relaxation. And that's a different mindset. So hard times and your reaction to that, being positive, work ethic, doing the things that need to be done, also pushing through the resistance, pushing through the hard times, the suffering, and getting towards the goal. Even if you cannot reach the goal in one go, which you might attempt, you will try to gain on the position, become closer to that goal, suffer again the setback, but then stand up again and go forward. Keep moving forward. And that's a good thing. So by telling you this and discussing this openly together, we, in the analogy of the Spartans, they didn't have heavy armor, but they had good shields. And those shields, because they prepared them and made them hard and tough as they could be, protected them against a lot of hardship. And also because they had a formation, because they are talking to each other like we are doing, to have a good formation, they can also protect each other and learn each other these skills. And that's what we try to do as well, by talking about it, discussing this openly, giving you the benefits and the drawbacks, and also the situational context why we are here. This will help you to become stronger and more prepared. You now have a shield. It might be a small shield, but you can work from that and make it bigger and stronger. And then move forward and also lean after that, or lean behind your shields, and not standing behind your comrades and letting them do all the work, but you also push yourself forward and stand at the front line. And of course you will try to be behind your shields. You're not stupid, you don't want to get hurt, but even if you get hurt, it does not mean that you will go cry and die. You will just seek possibilities to get better again if the hurting is very serious, or you just push through. You say, okay, this is suffering that I got, but okay, I can manage this. I'm strong enough. I can do this. And that's the thing that really will help you through life and also through business, because it's just an utopia that you think that everything will be only a pleasant thing. It will not. There will be a lot of pleasant phases, and if you're able to push through hardships, you will have more pleasant phases. That's my experience, instead of less. Because once something occurs, you just push through it, and then you go back on the positive path again. That's a good thing, and because you are able to push through, oftentimes you will also get the reward that's behind that. It's oftentimes a positive thing. Of course, if your role is to help solve the bigger problems and the hard problems, also for your clients or other companies, or you're like an in-between type of guy at interim, your only goal is to solve these type of problems, then you will encounter those type of problems far more than someone who only has to solve his own problems, of course. So that can be different. If you are the one to solve the things, also for other companies, of course you will get a lot of hardships that you have to solve. But perhaps you can also draw energy from that, because you know you can solve that. And perhaps you also are a type of person, and that's the extreme entrepreneur. Because an entrepreneur, if I look at myself, I like the adrenaline rush. So also the hardship and pushing through that and gaining again, that's something that gives me also energy. I like this positive stress, so to say, because it is stressful, yes, but if you can manage this and also alter it into something positive, you can make this a positive influence instead of a negative. But the extreme version of thereof is that you do this all the time, or almost all the time, and of course you don't have enough adaptations you have to make in your own company, so you also do this for other companies. But that's an extreme set of entrepreneur, because for an entrepreneur you already need to have this type of mindset, in my belief, that you will just solve all the problems. But as an entrepreneur that's solely focused at doing the hardest things for other companies as well, yeah, that's an extreme elite level. But sometimes it also feels a lot different when you do it for another company than you're for your own. Like you might have encountered this in your personal life. Oftentimes human nature is that it's easier to say, okay, that person, they should do this and that. But you also reflect it on yourself. What do you need to do? What do you need to improve upon? And a lot of people are quite blindsided to do that. And they need an external force to help them, because they are just not capable of doing it. And that should not be you. Of course it can be you, but it should not be you, because if you focus on yourself and improving yourself, that's where you have your circle of influence. And by doing so, you can also inspire others to become the best version of themselves. Instead of just telling others what they should do, your circle of influence will be limited. And you can also influence people with your deeds. Your deeds can influence people a lot more than your words, which can be empty shells. And also the relationships between you and the other are not disrupted that much, because both of you are just working to become the best version of themselves. And of course you help each other, but you're not focusing on the other person all the time. You focus on yourself, and you, of course, you will try to help. You will be a friend. You will also tell them the things that they might not want to hear but need to hear. That's a good friend. But you're at least as hard for yourself, and then they will be much more likely to also to accept what you're saying, because what you're preaching, do as you preach. What you preach, they also see that you're doing and applying to your own life, and that makes the whole experience completely different. Well, this was quite an episode. It was a nice interaction. It was nice talking to you about this topic. I hope this really helps. And if it doesn't click like this, perhaps you get some thoughts out of it that you can consider, meditate a little bit about, or do your own research and apply it and see what happens. And please let me know. I'm really open to hear what you are experiencing, or what you want from life, or are lacking in life, or what's the kind of setbacks that you are experiencing. But now enjoying this nice ride in my car, nice road, not too much of traffic jams so far, which is a pleasant thing. There is nice weather and nice talking with you. Founder in car out. In this Founder in car we will talk about strategy once this fuel, either gasoline or diesel or also electricity, is becoming more and more expensive. You still have to work, but as an entrepreneur you might have some things to consider. One of the things to consider is, of course, drive at times that you have less traffic jams. Less traffic jams will improve the fuel economy of your car, because you don't have to stop all the time. That's a good thing. The other thing, of course, is that if it is possible, and there's a new mindset also due to COVID, that you can plan meetings online. This can also save a lot of fuel, of course, because then you don't have to travel all the time. So that's a new methodology that you can add to your tools. Another thing to consider is that there are alternative ways of moving around. Of course, you can use public transportation, but even if you're not that much of a fan of that, like me, for example, you can use your bike to do a part of the traveling. I also have a motorcycle. Motorcycle is very often beneficial because it gets quite a good fuel economy, and also you can park them almost everywhere, and also often for free or for a limited amount of money. So even if you cannot completely wipe out the fuel bill, you still have the benefit that the parking bill, which are also becoming insane, sometimes 8 to 9 euro an hour in some regions in the Netherlands, that you can manage that amount, and you can drive a huge amount of distance even with this fuel prices on that amount of money that you would then pay for just parking. Parking is not costing anything almost. So there are some things that you can consider. Other things that you can consider is, for example, if you have colleagues and you drive to a similar location, you can carpool, so one picks the other one up, or you can make an appointment that you have a specific location where you drive to, and then you switch to the other car, or they come sit with you, and that of course can also decrease the fuel bills. If you have 4 persons in a car, you would have to drive exactly the same distance. It would be the 25% about, but more realistically, normally you would of course have to a little bit of detour, etc. So it might cost you 35% if you are able to put 4 persons into the car instead of driving yourself all the time. So there are some things that you can consider to decrease the amount of money that you spend. It can also be very cozy and helpful. It could also be counterproductive, of course, if you're having calls with clients that are of a nature that needs confidentiality. Of course, this is not a thing that you should apply to. There are other ways to approach this, but if you want to have a talk and they also are there to express their feelings or other things that are bothering them, of course it should not be that the other persons are listening into that. So it really depends on the situation. Another thing, of course, that you can consider is getting a different car with better fuel economy, or an electric car. Oftentimes it is cheaper, especially if the distance is not that long. And also electric cars have a lot less cost when you look at maintenance. But the upfront cost, even with subsidies by the government or whatever, are often higher than internal combustion engine. In the Netherlands they have a system that they punish you extremely if you have CO2 coming from your exhaust. So the higher the CO2, the higher the luxury tax, and luxury tax can in some more sporting cars be more than 60,000 euros. So you can imagine that's almost the price that the car is really valued, intrinsic value of that car. So you can imagine what happens, and therefore there is a trend towards different type of cars, more fuel economy, but also towards electric cars, because they don't have that luxury tax yet. So they are out of that luxury tax, and which can make up an enormous amount of the total price paid for the automobile. So that's something that is now arising. And the good thing is that you can still have a lot of fun with electric car. I also had an electric car, Tesla Model S 90D. Really, really nice car. And it also has a sufficient range that you can go for longer trips to, for example, Amsterdam, from the southern part of the Netherlands where I live. So there are some things that you can, of course, consider. Other things to consider is that it does take some additional time if you have to supercharge along the way. Very often this is easy to be put into your schedule. You can work through some of your stuff on the accountancy part or administration or whatever, or do some emails. So that's a thing that you can consider, but it will take some additional time that you're away from home, just to put things into perspective to this degree. I hope that is something that you can also take into consideration. Also, if you go for an electric car, please understand that not all electric cars have the coverage that a Tesla has, because the Tesla has both the normal coverage of all the loading facilities and the speed loading facilities, but they also have their own supercharger network, which has the best coverage. And also in foreign countries this is often very well done. In Germany, of the neighboring countries of the Netherlands, we have Belgium and Germany neighboring us. It was a lot less well established as, for example, Belgium, but the Netherlands, it's so fantastic coverage. So long story short about electric cars, if you live quite close to your home, electric car is perfect because you can charge at home. If you have an alternative way to do the longer trips, where for example the second car can do that, then you are perfectly fine at where you are sitting now. If you don't have that, you will need a car that also has a decent range and can supercharge, or otherwise have a fast way of charging. Also, the cost of a Tesla supercharger are far less of that of other commercial suppliers, so they have excellent deal there. So also please take it into consideration, even if you think that other cars might have a more luxurious feel. The performance of Tesla Model S or Model 3 is perfect. Also efficiency is very good, and they have that supercharging network which is of high value if you have longer trips on a regular basis, or you also need this car for your holidays, for example. Okay, and then there are some other tricks that you can do with every car if you really want to. Those tricks are more towards the hypermiling. Of course, I also say there's a new way of driving, so that you just shift up at 2500 RPM at max, and then so once engine, and you look at the RPM scale, you see it's 2500 RPM, you shift up to the next gear, etc. You don't go over that. And if you drive in the highest gear, of course you will have better fuel economy because it operates on a lower. There was someone doing a stupid thing, and that's also a thing which you can consider. If you have security systems like this one in place, of course still the responsibility is for yourself, but they will help you have a better effect and also be more alert of situations that could be dangerous. For example, what happened here, person just smashed his car onto the other lane and then had to brake. Yeah, that was almost standing still from 100 kilometers an hour, so that's quite dangerous, of course. So if you have a car that has such a security system in place, this can be of benefit. Also a car which has parking sensors, because if you damage your car, this also will be quite costly. Not so much only on gasoline, but also parts are getting more expensive. And if you have a rearward camera, this can also help you. This also has this Suzuki Swift Sport I'm driving, also has this sort of radar system at the back. So if someone is crossing, so you're driving rearwards, and someone is crossing the lane, he will also alert you. And these things are of benefit. Also, if you have good brakes, you saw the braking reaction, this will also help you, because you can, even if other cars are not able to brake, you are able to brake the distance. Please also take into consideration your rearwards mirrors to see if the persons behind you are also coping. Otherwise you might be able to flee to the side and just avoid an accident like that. But we were primarily focused at fuel consumption. So this is for electricity, diesel, gas, also natural gas. It's all the same. What they do with this hypermiling is that you have a low RPM to operate at. So the lower you keep the RPM, the better it is for the fuel economy. I'm not so much a pro for this, because I think also the engine needs to have some operating room to work in. So I would not get my engine below 1500, 1000 RPM on a regular for a long distance, but because I think it's too low, and you will stress the engine in another way. But of course it will lower fuel consumption. But 1500 to 2500 RPM, I think it's perfect for a car to operate in. Not a big deal. So that's a good way to approach this. But they also, this will diminish the strain on the engine, of course, but they will also inflate the tires to a high degree, and good inflated tires are good for performance as well. But if you inflate the tires too much, you will also make the tire, instead of this, more of a balloon at the bottom, and that will decrease, of course, rolling resistance, but also decrease the contact patches, and the wear on the tires will also be different. So the performance of the car, for example braking, accelerating and road holding ability will then diminish, but that's something that you could do, of course. Some people are also taping off the engine compartments, so next to the rolling resistance they also try to decrease the wind resistance. That's something that you can do, but please take into consideration that depending on the driving style, so if you also combine this with this very low RPM driving style, the engine will normally not heat up that much. But if you will heat up the engine and it has no way to cool down, this is not a good thing, of course. But with a gentle driving style you can cope with that. Another thing to consider is that if you look at extremely fuel economy cars, they often also lower the car a little bit, and the lowering of the car will also decrease the area where the wind has to fight against, so the CW value, and that's something that can help both performance, because the car becomes a little bit stiffer and lower to the ground, lower the center of gravity, but also can increase fuel economy, so that's something that you of course can consider. Also you can consider tuning your car. You can tune your car for performance, or you can tune your car for fuel economy. Oftentimes those tunes are quite overlapping, but the difference is that if you only tune for fuel economy, normally they will have a cutoff of a max RPM that you can go, and then the engine will just not go any further. So therefore your how do you say this? You need to stay within that narrow range of optimal performance, and you will also decrease the top speed. So if you drive very fast, you will have less efficient mode of operation, of course. So that's something that you could do. I'm not a fan of that. I would rather tune my car normally, and if you stay at low RPMs, you still have the benefit of the fuel economy tuning, but you can also exploit the higher rev ranges for top speed and also performance. So then you have both, but it's just something to consider. If you have a fleet of cars, and you could buy, for example, the cheaper version that has less horsepower and less torque, and then you can tune it for efficiency, so you still get a torque increase at the lower RPMs, but you limit it at the higher RPMs. Of course you will decrease the wear of the engine, which is beneficial for the longevity of the engine, but also you will increase, of course, the fuel economy. So those are things that from a company perspective, especially if you have an entire fleet, are of course to be considered. Other things to consider is that some people go for very cheap parts, and that could be something to consider, but very often it also cheaper parts are less quality. So would you really want to do this? There are also people that go for very hard compound on the tire, so the harder compound has less rolling resistance and also oftentimes will be able to be used for a longer duration of time, and less rolling resistance will again increase fuel economy. So there are things to consider. It will, however, harder compounds limit the grip to a degree. Hope this video helped. Foundering car out. So another foundering car, and today we will discuss the things that you can do to improve fuel economy but also performance. And there are only a few things, so I will be quite fast with this video. One thing that you can do is reduce the weight of the car. So you can do, of course, strip out the things that you don't need. Some people even remove the back seats if they don't use those, or replace parts. And what you can replace, for example, if you have a performance exhaust, oftentimes it's a lot lighter. I think my exhaust is now 6 or 8 kilogram lighter than the standard one, while giving you also a little bit more performance. Not only the weight reduction will increase the performance, but also because it flows better, and also this will help in fuel economy, because less restraint can often improve also the fuel economy to a degree. Another thing that you can consider is, for example, these windows, especially at the back. They are often replaced with plastic, a Lexan type of window. it is a lot lighter. You can have carbon parts or other lightweight parts on your car, for example carbon hood, etc. But yeah, they are quite costly, those lightweight parts, and they don't improve that much of fuel economy, especially because you have to invest a lot of money. The exhaust, however, I think is a good way to start, and you can also take away the things you do not need in the car. And all that additional weight that you then remove will increase performance, but also the performance on fuel. Another thing to consider is if you lower the car a little bit, you will have a stiffer ride and lower center of gravity. Oftentimes is this an improvement to performance, but also you will have lower resistance, lower rolling resistance. Not so much, but you get lower resistance because the wind has a smaller area to act upon and use force against, and therefore you will have higher performance, so for example higher top speed, but also you get better fuel economy. Another thing to consider that is also not that pricey is that you can consider chip tuning. So if you drive then at the lower regions of the car, you can have better fuel economy because you already have more torque at lower regions, lower RPM, so to say, which is also beneficial of course for fuel economy. If you however exploit chip tuning, and especially if it's a regular chip tuning, not for economy but also for performance, you will of course use more fuel. So please take it into consideration. You have something that can benefit both, but if you will exploit the maximum power, of course your fuel consumption will go up. So those are some things to consider. Also, another thing is driving, a way of driving. If you're more anticipating, you will be able to move faster through the traffic, but also have less stop and a more efficient way of going about. So for example, if you see some cars already weaving in and out, you can let go of the gas or put a little bit more gas on it so that you stay in front of them and you don't have to brake hard and then re-accelerate again. So some small tips to consider. Have a great day. Foundry Car out. So this video is a Foundry Car and goes a little bit about a bug out vehicle. So a vehicle that you use to flee and take some stuff with you. For example, the people in Ukraine that want to flee, they need transportation preferably, and a car can be a good solution. So what would help in that car is that you have enough storage that you can take some stuff with you. So for example, a station car would be a very good bet. Also a car that is quite decent on fuel, so you don't have to refuel all the time. You can take some fuel with you of course, but also if you have good fuel economy, this is a benefit. And also a car that's a little bit higher on its has a little bit more ground clearance, because in case of conflict oftentimes also the surface will decrease in quality, so it could be a lot rougher and perhaps you have to go to plow to a field. But then also all-wheel drive would be a benefit to take into consideration. So some of the things just to get your head around. Another thing would be a car that's quite safe. So a heavy car could probably offer more ability. Also if you have some bull bars at front and especially and perhaps also at the back, that you can pull through or push through roadblocks easier if needed. And another thing to take into consideration, I mentioned fuel economy, but perhaps a performance car can be even better. And why is that? If you have to get away from a situation or to flee and you get chased down, a performance car is more capable of putting distance between you and the bad guys, so to say. So in that perspective, if money was no object, I think an Audi RS6 would be a good bet. It is a station wagon, so a lot of room. It also has extreme performance and is quite strong. Or even a bigger one like a BMW X5, a little bit higher and bull bars upon it, or something from Ford or or other American brands, or Toyota Tundra, something like that, could be a perfect solution, because they can also come with bull bars, have all-wheel drive as well, have decent performance, and have also sufficient amount of storing room. So that those cars are very much of interest. At the lower side, the cheaper side, I think a Dacia Logan could also prove to be beneficial, because it has enormous storage room. So the Logan station wagon, or any other station wagon, they can just help you get a lot of stuff in and flee. But of course those cars are a lot less capable in performance, but also a lot less sturdy in case of an accident, or that you have to push through something. But yes, you can take them into consideration. Foundering car out. Hope it doesn't. It is not something that we all need, but just giving you the lowdown if you are thinking about this. Have a great day. So I'm now driving on the highway, and today's topic of foundering car is the road to success, because there is an analogy between driving, as I'm now doing, towards your goal, and it's in this case my house, and the road to success. So you have a goal that you want to go to, but sometimes also you see that a lot of other persons also have a similar goal, because the road is crowded with other cars, and sometimes it's so much crowded that you get a traffic jam, for example. Oftentimes the road to success is not a road that all the persons take, because if you try to go that route, you will get stuck. You're stuck in a traffic jam, but also stuck in life. And why is that? There is no cookie cutter build that will always work. Because if it's too successful, the reaction of the market is that a lot of people will do it, and then it will become harder to do. So it's not easy to cut the cookies anymore, so to say. And therefore it's good to also try to reinvent yourself. Of course, it's smart to not reinvent the wheel all the time. If you know that something is working, please do it the way it is working already. And therefore you get some advantages, because you have more energy to focus on ways that are not working so great and where you can improve upon. So if there's already an alternative that works pretty well, and you can only increase it like 2 or 3%, the advantages of what you bring your innovation are a lot less great than when you have something that is working for 60% or similar, and you are able to improve that to 70 or 80%, because that means that you can improve it by 1 to 2/6, and 2/6 is 1/3 of the amount. Whereas if something is working 90% and you're able to improve to 92%, you only improve it about 2.2%. That's not such a big advantage. And oftentimes, because it already is such a great system that works already pretty well, that there are diminutive returns in your progression. But I'm not trying to sidetrack here, I'm just trying to state that if you want the road to success, of course you can do as everyone is doing, and that is improve and patch, so that's the benefit of that. But also it's very wise to look if there are other ways that are not so well treaded already and not so crowded, but perhaps in your case could be more efficient. And you can also have a hybrid model, that you do partly what everybody is doing, so that's a little bit about risk management, but you also do, for example, half of your efforts, or 10% or 20% on a high risk bet that could be hit or miss. But if it's a hit, perhaps you have a lot more gains. And of course, if you would put all 100% of your effort or time or means in the cookie cutter builds, that's already expanded, because everyone is doing it, it's pretty crowded, and it's quite a guarantee for success, but not that big of a success. Of course, you might have bigger chances with a higher guarantee, so to say. But also, it will never be world shocking. Whereas the half of your time or 10% of your time put into a high risk object could be completely a miss, but if it is a hit, then you have perhaps huge gains. You could also put all the time, of course, in the high risk approach, but then perhaps you're not able to live anymore because there are also costs of living, etc. So there's oftentimes, even with the most extreme type of person, there is a compromise, because you want something that's at least keeps you going on the road to success, and otherwise you might do something quite daring to have a higher chance on getting success in a limited time frame. Because the road to success is not only the road that you have to tread, and that other people are also treading, but also the time that you need to be on that road. And with the high risk, high return, of course, the time can be decreased a lot. That's something to consider as well. Of course, there is a higher risk, but also potentially a higher return. And with the threat that everyone is approaching, there's also an enormous risk and a guaranteed lower return if there is success. So everything is about risk and mitigating risk, and also about showing balls, showing cojones to do things that others are not that much willing to do, and that's often favored. Because you do something that has a higher risk, but also often a higher return, which you can then monetize upon and valorize that. I hope this short video helps you. Founder in Car, out. In this video we will discuss a video of the Founder in Car series, financial freedom at what cost. And why do I mention this topic? Of course, a lot of people are interested in financial freedom. We all are, me as well. But the path to financial freedom can sometimes have detrimental effects. And why? Because you also are living now, and you want to have a compromise between securing something for the future, but also living in the here and now. Because what could happen is that you are very steadily on the way of financial freedom, and perhaps you live well below your means all the time, and then you get sick or die or whatever. You are not able to ever approach the goal that you had. So you suffered all your life, or the greatest amount of the time, to get somewhere where you never are getting, and you should also enjoy where you're sitting at this moment. That's my opinion. And I think you should not sacrifice the things that define you. So sometimes people say, okay, I do this, I'm not okay with it, but I just do it because I think it will get me so much closer to my ultimate goal. And that could be a good thing. If you do something that's very hard work, for example, but you only do it to progress that level, I think that's still great. And I really respect that you do something, that you push yourself over your comforts, limitations, and approve yourself. You gain a level, you become a better person. But if you do something that you're principally against just to get to the next level, I think this is stupid. I would never recommend that, because you're like selling your soul to the devil. You do something that you're against just to advance, and that's something I would never recommend. And I know a lot of people still do this. They just do it because they think, okay, sometimes also they double cross persons that they should have their back, and that should be able to rely and depend on them. And I don't like that. I really don't. And I think this is extremely stupid. Not only because you do something that taints you, but also you do something that goes against your own value. So how much value do you consist of? Value is not only the financial part, it's your moral, your lessons you learned, what makes you as a person is much more important than just material things, in my opinion, much more important. So I would never approve of that. But hey, everyone does what he does or she does. But that's something that to take into consideration. And the other thing is that because of that, you also get, because you are at that time a double crosser, you will get people around you that are also double crossing. Because a specific type of person normally attracts similar-minded type of persons. And even if you are not that type of guy and you're surrounding yourself with guys that do this junk type of things, they will influence you. Oftentimes they say that the 5 people surrounding you make up a lot of what you will become. So you will become like the resulting sum of, and then divided of course by the amount of persons that of the person surrounding you. You're not an inert person. You are reacting with your environment, and like a sponge, you're sucking up the influence of those persons, and also that will leave marks on you, as I mentioned, stains you. And that's something I think you should never do. And also, who doesn't want to be surrounded with loyal people, people that are really there for you, love you, and also like you to succeed? If you like that, be that type of person. Don't be a bad person and think that other person should be good to you because you're a bad person. They fear you. Some people tell you, I'd rather be feared than loved because the fear lasts long. Yeah, I think this is stupid. Love conquers all, and of course you should not be dumb. So if people are mistreating you, I'm not saying that you should always be there for them, but sometimes you can also open their eyes, and there's a different way. But yeah, of course you should not be the victim yourself because you just let people treat you like that. You empower them to treat you like that. I should not recommend that. I wouldn't. But you understand where I'm coming from, that you should always think that the value that you are is not defined by the material part. It is defined by the sum of all. And money can be an attribute, a tool, but it's of course not something that should define you. Never. Found a car? Out. Found a car, and today we will discuss friendship. So everyone wants to have good friends around him or her because that makes life so much more pleasant. But how do you get them? If you want good friends, you should look at the person that you think could be a good friend of you and try to socialize, of course, and see if you have some synergies so that you can have some discussions together and talk together and see that it could help. But another thing to do is be a good friend yourself. If you want a certain type of friend, you cannot find them, but you are yourself developing in the best version that you can be. You will also attract persons that have similar values. It could be someone that could become your spouse or a good friend, and also the friends that you already have, you help them extract the most of themselves because you push them to become also the best version of themselves. And it could be that the best version of themselves is not sufficient for you. Could very well be. But it could also be. It could also very well be that that they will develop into something that is a lot better. And that's what I try to tell you. Be the best version of yourself. Treat persons with respect. Be also respectful to yourself, of course. Because if you yourself do not respect yourself, why would others? Ask yourself that question and also answer it for yourself. So if you show respect for yourself, you show that you are of high value. You also trigger that in your surroundings. The people around you, they say, okay, he respects that guy, he respects himself. Why is that? Is there something specific with that guy? And they will get interest in you. If they are of high value, they will put interest in getting to know you. Like you could put interest in getting to know other person of high value. Hope this helps. It's just a short video, but I think it's an important issue to address. Foundering car, out. So this is not a foundering car, and this is about advice on getting a new car in this current situation, because there's something happening in the world market, as you might be able to see. I think you are very lucky if you just bought your car before the crisis in Ukraine and you already have the prices fixed of the car that you're going to get, and also the prices fixed of the car that you are just giving the car dealership for a discount on your new car. And why is that? One, prices will rise of new cars because there are limited supplies. Ukraine develops a lot of products that you need for your car. Prices go up of manufacturing, transportation, etc., etc. The other thing is also your car will have will be there for you, and you have a longer term before you get a new car. So what I'm saying, it's not only the price that rise, but also the time needed to produce your car. So you have a longer time that you can drive your current car and still have the fixed price when you sell it. You turn it in when you buy the other car. You sell it, you get the same price for it, even if the time that they anticipated that it would take was a bit shorter. So the depreciation of your current car is less over the entire period, and you get the other car for the price that was before the crisis, which is lower than it will become during this crisis and after this crisis. And crisis, I think that is a little bit harsh to put on everything these days, and they are. So, but there's a conflict, and we can all agree on that there's a conflict, and that has an impact on prices, and therefore you must be very happy that you clicked the price of the new car before it is increasing, and it will increase, and also click the amount that the fixed amount that you will get in return of your car, even though the timeline is a lot longer. So that's a very good thing. And I think also because the other effects that are now playing, the inflation, and there will be a hyperinflation, I think, because this conflict will also put strain again on the already strained economy, that you have a very good deal. If you're really looking for a car, I think this is also a very good time to do so. And perhaps you should, if you have nothing to trade in, perhaps you should go for a demo. So a car that they already have in stock, and just click it before the prices will increase even further. Because I think that's the trend we are going into. And also, if you are able to trade in a car, I think if you are able to fix the price that you get in return of the car, and also fix the price that you have to pay for the car, and even a car that will take quite a while, that is beneficial for you, a model that is not that easily produced, that's a great benefit, because then you have minimal depreciation, and you have the guarantee to get the car for a good price. So even if you trade it in after, for example, a year, you perhaps are able to get still the same price for it as you paid for it. So that's a thing of my thing I wanted to stress, and my advice when you are looking for a new car. Hope this helps. Foundering car, out.